All right, looks like we are live. Take it away.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our virtual book party to celebrate two new releases. I have with me here today Meryl Wilsner, author of My Best Friend's Honeymoon, and Jessica Lewis, author of Name's Foolproof Guide to Falling in Love. And we are here to tell today to celebrate both of these awesome new releases. So Jessica and Meryl will be having about an hour conversation. Towards the end, they will be free to answer any audience questions. So you guys can go ahead and leave all of your burning questions for them down below in the YouTube chat. And then in the last 10 to 15 minutes, they'll take a look at those and answer those. So if you are all ready, Meryl, Jessica, I will take it away to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
I'm really excited to be here and get to chat with Jessica. Um, Jessica and I actually know each other because we were in Pitch Wars together long ago, it
Mm-hmm.
feels like at this point. Um, where yeah, mentorship program where we were both working on books and look at us now. What, how long has it been? Like 7 years later, I
Yeah,
think.
7 years. I think we were 2018.
Yeah, that is feels crazy. Feels like it's both flown past and also um feels, I feel like a whole different person than I was when I first got
Yes.
chosen for Pitch Wars. Um so yeah, let's we both had books come out last week, and hopefully it's had a fun release week. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So the elevator pitch is, that Will Smith movie Hitch.
Hmm.
It's that but gay. So
Love it.
that's the elevator
Anything
pitch.
but gay is a great pitch, I think.
Pretty much. But the longer one is the local heartbreaker signs up to help the shy new girl to get with her best friend, but she falls for the shy new girl instead.
Beautiful. I love it. I read it and an advanced copy and really enjoyed it. Um and yeah, it's very different from, you wrote a YA, I wrote a very adult book. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
My Best Friend's Honeymoon is about two lifelong best friends who end up on a non-refundable honeymoon together, and Elsie, whose honeymoon it was supposed to be, after her engagement falls apart, her best friend Ginny tells Elsie that she can have anything she wants as long as she asks for it. Um, and there's quickly turned sexual on the honeymoon, and it's a real romp. They have a lot of fun together, and then kind of have to figure out what happens once the honeymoon is over. Um, so yeah, very obviously very different writing adult versus young adult here. But I know, this is also your first romance. How has the experience been different from other books that you've written?
Yeah, so I started with horror, actually, the complete
Love
opposite
it.
spectrum
I
of
don't know
romance.
that it is the opposite. I think in both horror and romance, it's very like emotions are very heightened. So I think they
Yes.
go kind of hand in hand, even if they might seem like the opposite.
Yes, one is very like and the other's like oh, that's the only difference. So, yeah, it was very different as far as like readers, I think.
Hmm.
The the horror readers are very like, yes, give me gore, give me violence, and they're like asking me like, when's the next one? Who are you going to kill next time? And then, of course, the romance readers are all like, oh, this is so cute and lovely and sweet, and I just want more sugary sweetness. So it's been very fun, especially the ones who overlap. They're
Yeah.
like, wow, this is very different, but I still like it. So that's been really nice too.
Are you ever, do you have any ideas for like a horror romance where you bring your fans from both genres together?
I actually do.
Amazing.
It's actually on sub right now. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, I call it a horror romance. So
Right? I love it. I love it. I will keep my fingers crossed for
yeah,
you.
fingers crossed. But yeah, that one's a vampire book. So they're hunting vampires, but obviously she falls in love with the vampire. So
Of course she does.
yeah,
Has anything surprised you in writing romance as opposed to horror?
I think more of like contemporary surprised me more than horror
Okay.
specifically because I'm used to like solving my problems with
magic. So
Yeah.
so then it was a little bit more difficult, I think, to write a pure contemporary. Everything is super focused on their emotions, and they can't get out of it with magic. They just have to, they have to grow up a little bit and actually
Yeah.
change. And but I think it actually made me a little bit of a better writer because I had to consider a different type of character arc, and less metaphorical and more like this is like real life.
Yeah. That's so interesting to me that it was harder for you because you kind of just get out of problems with magic. Because to me, the idea of writing anything other than contemporary seems so difficult because I'm like, I can barely write something set in real life. You think I'm going to be able to like invent a magic system? That's too difficult. Sorry.
No, no, no. Give it a try. I promise you, it's not as hard as contemporary.
I don't know. It overwhelms me. We'll see. Maybe someday. Never say never.
Yeah, never say never. But yeah, I mean, you could ease into it. You could have like a little bit of romance and then like just one magical element, like time travel or
Yeah,
something.
I do. I do think that that has become somewhat popular in romance lately. It's like not even actually romantasy, but like light magic.
Yeah, yeah, like One Last Stop, I think is a good example.
Yeah,
How
that's a
that's
great
like,
example.
yeah, that's like completely contemporary, except just like this tiny little thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's always a possibility. Um, in addition to writing in multiple genres, you also write for multiple age ranges or age
I do.
categories, right?
Hmm.
You have a little pen name who writes middle grade. How has your experience been different, writing across age categories?
That one, I think middle grade to YA is much more difficult than YA to adult. Um,
Okay.
so middle grade is just like it's a whole different world. Like
Yeah.
because you're writing for such a huge age range. Like my guidelines were 8 to 12, and an 8-year old is so different than a 12-year
So
old.
different. Yeah.
So yeah, and so like when you're writing for teenagers, you're kind of like, okay, different teens have different maturity levels, but they're all kind of around the same mindset. But an 8-year old is not like
Yeah.
their maturity
The
level is not the same.
yeah, the growth from 8 to 12 is very different from than 15 to 19. Um,
Absolutely. And at the time when I was writing it, I didn't know any children. So that was very difficult to, the voice was hard to nail down there. Also, you can't swear. So
yeah,
that made me
there
sad.
is that. Do
But I still really
you
enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you have a preference? Or is it just sort of based on the vibes of the day?
I think YA will always be my love because that's where I started.
Yeah.
So, you always it feels like coming home when you write a YA, but I do still really like middle grade just because the kids are so enthusiastic. I love getting like messages from their parents. They're like, "Oh, my kid just they carried this book around all day and like wouldn't put it down," and that's really nice.
Yeah, that's so fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that it just sounds that like I obviously don't write for kids and I have some young adult ideas.
Oh,
But
you should do it.
I don't know if I have Jessica, I have so many ideas. I have like a whole spreadsheet of ideas. There are already plenty that I won't get around to. So it's not a priority.
That's
My
fair.
couple of like YA ideas. It might happen at some point. But yeah,
Well, I will read
I love
them.
yeah. But I do just love the idea of, kids or even kids' parents being like, "Oh my God, my kid loved this book so much."
Right? It's
Um,
so cute. And then I did
yeah.
have my favorite story from a kid is a kid messaged me on Instagram was like, "Can you give me the summary of your book?" And I'm always like leery of texting children. So I was just
Yeah.
like, like I'm glad you enjoyed it or whatever. But then she was like, "I have a book report due tomorrow and I just really need you to help me."
So it wasn't like, "Oh, I love your book so much. Let's talk
Yeah,
about it." It was like, "Please do my homework for me."
pretty much. Yeah. But I was like, so that just made me laugh so much. I was like, you know what? Just for being bold enough to ask the literal author, then yes, I will
Exactly. It
help
takes a
you.
lot of gumption.
Yeah. I was never that brave as a child.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Not for me. For this book, what do you hope that readers take away from it?
For this one, I just really wanted to focus on joy. Like, this book has no homophobia, no racism. Like, it does deal with a little bit of a deeper, like, familial issues, but I just really wanted people to have fun and laugh and have a good time, and just for a couple of hours, just have an escape from the world. And I hope that people take that away.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think it is such a fun book and such a fun read. Um, so I think that you really nailed that. Um, do you feel like you have sort of an overarching message across all of your books? Like for me, I write contemporary romance and they're all obviously different, but I feel like my sort of overarching theme is um like letting yourself have what makes you happy,
Mm,
um sort of regardless of other people's opinions or it being difficult or whatever, just or the fact that you might have to be vulnerable in order to make it happen.
yep, the
um
scariest thing in the world.
right, exactly. Do you feel like your books, and maybe you can separate it for I don't know if your middle grade are different than your YA, but do you feel like you have an overarching message sort of across your books?
Yeah, the middle grade are a little bit different because they're IP, so like, I'm a little bit beholden to the
Hmm.
contract there.
Hmm. I don't
But
think I realized that they were IP.
yeah, they are. We can talk about it
Okay.
later if anybody's
Yeah.
interested, but yeah, they are. Um, but as far as my YA, I love your themes. They're very nice and sweet, but mine are just like I have mom issues, and so all my characters have mom issues. So
That works too.
yeah, it's not as nice, but they all have mom issues. But also, they all celebrate like I want to say like friendship is a big thing in
Yeah.
mine. Um, Friends are very important to the characters, even if they're like antagonistic sometimes. Like usually they have your best interest at heart, and I think that's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly, in terms of, like, oh, I have mom issues, so my characters have mom issues. I absolutely do that too, of working out sort of things that are happening or have happened in the past in my own life, um, through my books and through my characters. Which is not to say like, oh, you know, this exact thing is what happens to me or for any of my books, but I think that we all, or I guess maybe I'm assuming, but I think that it's common for authors to sort of work through things in fiction. I think that writing is a really safe place for us to do that,
Hmm.
um, to explore and adjust, and well, what would it be like if it was this way, and just sort of analyze things, in a place that, not to say that writing can't hurt you, because I feel like I've often been hurt by having to write, but
Yeah.
in a place that feels a little bit, more safe. It's not actually dealing with like our actual personal issues, but it's allowing us to explore and analyze them as we write.
Yeah, I agree with that because it's like I do this thing where I'm scared of horror movies, but I really like them. So I
Hmm.
will watch a reaction on YouTube. So there's like
Yeah.
a layer of separation. So somebody is watching it, they're watching it, I'm watching them. So I feel like that's kind of like how we use writing as therapy. Like there's a degree of separation from
Yeah,
the issue.
exactly.
Yeah, because the
Exactly.
character is the buffer. And so
Yeah. And you at least have the, sort of, you can pretend, oh, this is this character feeling all these things.
yeah.
That buffer, I think, allows you to maybe be a little bit more vulnerable than you might want to be if you were admitting it about yourself right away.
Yeah. And you can just like, if you're not ready, you just pretend that's their problem. It's not your problem.
Yeah.
It's fine. Even if it comes up in the next 5 books, like it's fine.
You'll get through it you'll figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
I love that you watch horror reaction videos. I have gotten into horror lately, both books and movies,
Ooh, nice.
and
If you
I
if you need
used
Rex, I
to
got you.
I'll always take them. Um, but I used to be very, I don't really like gore, so that is
Hmm.
a tough thing for me when it comes to horror. That's a lot easier for me in books than it is in, like, actually having to see it is really
Yes.
rough for me. But in books, I can read like the most, sort of gory, vile thing and be fine because my brain will just be like, I don't have to actually process this.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's easier to black out.
yeah. But I would read, like a Wikipedia summary of what happens so then I could be prepared. And I feel like that's like watching a reaction video is there's a
Hmm.
little bit of a degree of separation.
Yes, absolutely. I gore doesn't bother me as much as like really creepy imagery. Like, I
Okay.
remember The Haunting of Hill House. Like anything with a
Yeah.
haunted house, I'm like, oh my god, I can't. Because like, what if my house is haunted? I just don't know it. Like, it could be haunted tomorrow.
See, and for me, I feel like it's the opposite for me. I'm much more afraid of like human men, basically,
Oh, true. Yeah.
attacking. Like if it's spooky and if it's ghosty, um, I don't know. I'm just much less worried about it than like a stranger outside your house looking in at nighttime or whatever. Like
Oh,
that
oh
spooks me so
yeah.
much more.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I love that
I
we're
just refuse to watch Home Invasion. Like, I
Yeah,
can't.
that's fair. That is fair. I love that we're talking about this while we both wrote rom-coms.
I know.
But we've gotten into the horror.
You're
Um,
you're right. They're connected, so it's okay.
yeah, it's just I feel like the emotions are really high and are at the forefront.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, yeah, Ariana, to anyone watching, Ariana mentioned this earlier, but we are going to take like audience questions as well. So please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go. Anything that you want to share or ask about. Um, we talked about this a little bit, but why do you write, Jessica? Why do you write the stories that you do? Like, do you the specific stories that you come up with? Obviously, you said some of them are IP, but what draws you to your stories, and where do you get your ideas?
Ooh, that's a good question. And it's two different places for the
Hmm.
genre. So for horror, I have PTSD, and a symptom of that is terrible nightmares. So a lot of them are just from my own nightmares. my my own sick brain comes up with it while I'm sleeping, and I just wake up and write it down. So
That works.
yeah, so I mean, free labor, I guess. But so that's the horror side, but the romance side, it came to be because I like to jump around in genres. I don't like to be like in a box, you know.
Hmm.
I don't want to be constrained. So when horror starts getting a little bit too scary or too spooky, I like rom-coms. I like reading romance. Um and Actually, that brings me to my favorite story, which is that Something to Talk About was the very first romance I read that I enjoyed.
I love that
So,
so much.
yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, it opened up a whole new world for me. And so after that, I read romance voraciously. And
I love
so,
that.
yeah. So I think I read it for about 2 years, and I thought, maybe I should just give it a try. And Nav was uh, born from a conversation on Slack, which was that the Great Gatsby had come into public domain, and so we were all like riffing on what we would do. And I was like, I'm going to make it gay. I'm going to make Nick and Gatsby fall in love, and it's going to be with lesbians. And so that's where it came from. But then I was like, oh, actually, I don't want to do all that. So I'm going to make it a rom com.
I'm gonna make it around.
Yeah, so that's where Nav came from. And I thought, oh, it would be so fun to retell the anime Toradora, which has the same setup where the best friends, they're trying to get with their best friends and they fall in love instead.
Yeah.
And yeah, but there are a little bit of remnants from the Great Gatsby, like Nav is Nick and Gia is
Okay.
Gatsby. And of course,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And then Jordan, of course, is the dog.
Okay. I see it. I love that. I love The Great Gatsby and I could turn this into a lecture about how it is gay. And
No, I
also
feel like it
Gatsby
is. It
and
is.
also Gatsby is actually black and he's white passing, but that's a
Oh,
whole different conversation.
yeah. We're gonna have to do a different lecture on that one.
Because I will text you about it later.
Yes, I want to hear about this.
Um, yeah, can you give us more insight into like your writing process as a whole? So like that's where you get your ideas. How do you actually get the words on the page? What does that look like for you?
So I am a severe plotter. Like, I have to have everything planned out before I write it. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, so but when I'm in the plotting process, I'm insane. Like I'm a gremlin. Like I'm waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and writing down ideas. I'm taking walks around my neighborhood in an endless loop, and I'm listening to the same song on repeat, and I'm staring at the
Hmm.
wall, and people are like, "Are you all right? Like, what's going on?" So, but I do like, it depends on the book, but it takes me about 3-4 weeks to plan everything out. But then since everything's done, it only takes me maybe like a month or to 6 weeks to draft it.
You're so powerful.
I
That
don't
is
have any other
so impressive
hobbies.
to me. I have a habit where I always think, if I really buckled down, I could finish this like 2 weeks from now. And that basically, I feel that way no matter where I am in writing a book. I think, like, even if when I just start, I'm like, probably write a book in 2 weeks. Like, I don't know why my brain decides that. I absolutely cannot and never have. But yeah, I always feel like, oh, if I just worked really hard, I'm almost done with this book, is basically where my brain thinks I am, at least. But then that goes on for like 5 months.
I like it. It's optimistic. Your brain's like,
It
you can do
is,
it.
yes, it is optimistic. It's just never correct.
So you said
Uh,
it takes you a little bit longer to do your first drafts?
yeah, it varies book by book. I always say I said this multiple times on tour last week as well. To me, we as authors, we don't learn to write books. We learn to write whatever book we're writing.
Yeah.
Um, because something to talk about. I wrote differently than I wrote Mistakes Were Made, and Mistakes Were Made. I wrote differently than I wrote Quick Cute, and so on and so forth. Um, so yeah, obviously there are skills and tips and tricks that we sort of pick up as we work on all of these books, but each book is like its own experience. And so we're going to come up upon different issues, and like we're just going to be in different places in our lives if we're writing them. Um, so for me, having to remember that just because something worked for a previous book doesn't mean that it's going to work for this book. Um, is always something that I have to figure out. And actually, and I'm currently working on my next book, and for the first time, I'm doing like I have to do a big overhaul.
Ooh.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
I have it mostly written, and I'm not exactly starting from scratch, but I'm kind of starting from scratch. Um, so it will be a very, I mean, we learn to write the book that we're currently writing, so I will figure out how to write it. But it's definitely a different experience from any of my other books that I have done so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. My like drafting process has stayed kind of consistent, but my editing process is where I feel that.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
every book has a different problem. Like
Yes, exactly.
yeah, Nav came in like really short, and so I had to really like work at expanding and like adding scenes and deepening characters. Like her dad like wasn't even like a big part of the first draft, and then of
Oh
course like
wow.
yeah, I know he's like a huge
Yeah.
part of the book now. And and then I'm working on the sequel with Hallie, and
Oh, I didn't know there was a sequel. That's so fun.
oh yes, this I call it the losers bracket. We have to see what they're doing. But yeah, with her, I turned it in. I wrote this whole 75K book, and my editor is like, your themes are wrong. And I'm like, when have I ever struggled with themes? Like, what is going on? So so that was like an overhaul as well.
Yeah, every book
Yeah.
has its own problem.
Yep.
What if for Pitch Wars, did you work on a book that you've now published for Pitch Wars?
Yes. It was called Wildfire, and then Bad Witch Burning
Okay,
ended up
Bad
being
Witch Burning.
my
That's what I
yeah.
thought. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
thought.
Ended up being my
Uh,
debut.
yeah. And that was the same for me. I was working on something to talk about, and that became my debut. And I'm still so grateful for Pitch Wars and the experience and everything
Yeah.
that I learned and all of
Yeah.
that.
I owe my career to Pitch Wars, honestly.
Exactly. Exactly. Me too. Um, what is like what's something that you've learned since then? We're 7 years out. Um, how is your view of publishing different now than it was when like even maybe as you got into Pitch Wars?
Ooh, I'm definitely like a hardened, seasoned, you know, I
I think
picture
that's how
myself
it
as like,
goes.
yeah, like a grizzled ship captain, you know. I'm no, I'm no longer like bright-eyed and like naive about
Absolutely.
publishing. Yeah. I guess like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I was not afraid because I didn't know that there were things to be afraid of. So
Yeah.
um
I
it's
came in. I first of all, when I finished the first draft ever of something to talk about, I literally knew so little about publishing that I Googled, what do you do when you finish a novel?
yep.
Like I just didn't know. I knew nothing about it. And so yeah, I think bright-eyed is and naive is a very good descriptor. I think that a lot of people, I mean, you want to write a book and you want to publish a book, and doesn't that all sound like a dream come true? Um, and I think it is in a lot of ways, but there's also a lot of ways that, sort of this business tries to isn't necessarily always great to authors. Um,
Yeah.
and so you have to deal with that and roll with the punches. And for me, my most important thing is like recognizing that other authors are your peers and your colleagues and your
hmm
friends. Um, I think especially when you first start, publishing tries to set authors up as like competition, um, where it's like, oh, this if this person succeeds, then you won't succeed, and that's just not how
Yeah,
things
it's
actually
just not
work.
true.
Yeah,
And but you feel that way at first.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like especially with your debut, like you're constantly comparing yourself to others like, "Oh, they got that and I didn't," or "I got
Yeah.
this marketing push and they didn't." And but every book is its own island, you know? Like you can't compare your experience to
And
other people's.
Well, and I think that, some of the, oh, so and so got this and I didn't. Um, a lot of that comes down to just asking your publisher to do it.
Yeah.
I think that when you're brand new, you don't know what you can and can't ask for. And at this point, I will ask for basically anything. Because the worst they can do is say no.
Yeah.
And if they say no, then I'm back where I started. But what if they say yes? Or what if they say, oh, we can't do that, but we'll do this instead? Um, I think that's definitely the way to do it, is just ask for absolutely everything that you could possibly want.
Yes.
Um,
Cuz I mean,
'Cause you
like you
might
said,
actually get it.
yeah, they might do it. And even if
Yeah,
they can't, then, you know, they appreciate you for trying and thinking of
yeah,
it.
yeah. When did Bad Witch Burning publish?
It was August 2021.
Okay, yeah. So Something to Talk About came out in 2020, um, in May of 2020. So it was a whole different experience where it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
obviously I wasn't couldn't do any events for it. I did virtual events, but um couldn't do anything in person, didn't get to meet readers, and that was really difficult. But also I think really helpful, in talking about debuts. I think the industry as a whole, but also authors, put a lot on debuts where you're like,
Yes.
if this doesn't do everything, if this doesn't make me $1 million so I can immediately quit my day job and just focus on writing, and I hit the New York Times bestseller list, and then suddenly I'm a superstar and I'm very famous and everything's great, then I failed. Um, and that's just not actually true
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's a long game. And
Yes.
that's something I did not know when I first started out. Something my agent very patiently tried to explain to me, and I was just like, "No, I'm just gonna be famous overnight." So, like, you're wrong. But
No, it's absolutely a long game. Honestly, it's coming out in 2020, I think, really helped me. I mean, maybe not realize that, but have to come to terms with that.
hmm
Because it was like, well, I can't have, a launch party. I can't go on tour. I can't do anything. Um, and which is not to say that my publisher would have even sent me on tour anyway. I don't know. But it allowed me to be like, well, I'll do that for my next book. It allowed me to have to, shift and focus on, you know, another book and another story coming out, so that I could do all the things that I wanted to do. Because yeah, publishing really, really is a long game.
yeah, and you build your readers slowly. The first one, and it's like maybe 5 people like it, and then the next one maybe 10, and then the next one maybe it's 20, and then it just
It
builds
goes
like
and
that.
goes.
Yeah, but it's hard to do that. Hard to realize that when you're brand new.
Yeah. Um, in that regard, what does, a successful novel look like to you? Or and what does even a successful career as a whole look like to you?
Obviously, $1 billion, private island, all of that.
All the things.
All of that. But no, I would actually consider myself successful right now.
Yeah,
And
for sure. Me too.
that's a different that's a different measure for everyone. But for me right now, I have several books in several genres that I really love. I have the freedom to be able to experiment. I have a really great agent who supports me in all of my experimentations.
That's awesome.
She doesn't like all of them, but I'm wearing her down. Don't worry.
She'll let you experiment it. She might not like it all.
Yeah. And I was able to quit my job, and
Yay.
yeah, I'm really happy about that. And I live with my grandmother. I'm able to spend time with her. Um I'm able to help her out, and that that has always been my goal, to spend more time with my family and to just kind of be present. And yeah, so I feel like right now I feel like a success, and I don't have a ton of money, I don't, but this is just like what I wanted out of this process.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I'm, in a similar boat. I have never had a job in my whole life that I wouldn't immediately quit if I could support myself writing. Um,
Absolutely.
and I was able to do that too. So, I also don't have a day job. And, when you have a day job and you're a writer, it's really like you have two jobs. You
Mm-hmm.
finish work and you have to go home and work. So like you said, you get to spend time with your grandma. It's like now I get to do my writing during the workday on evenings and weekends. I can hang out with my wife, which I love doing. That's why I married her,
Exactly.
like, so I think, yeah, I think you're right that success definitely looks like different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as we talked about, it can be hard to recognize that it is a long game, and to recognize that just because, you maybe, don't hit a bestseller list or earn out or whatever, that doesn't make you less of a success.
Yes.
um, and you need to figure out and define success for yourself, rather than sort of letting the industry and society define it for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which, as now that I've said that out loud, I'm realizing, like, that's what I said in terms of, like, my overarching message across all my books is, like, you get to let yourself be happy, and you get to determine what that is, even if other people might not agree.
Yeah, you're onto something. It's a
Yeah, I
universal
guess.
theme.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm predictable. You said it much nicer. Much more nice. So can you tell us a little bit about what you are working on now? You mentioned the sequel.
Yes. So that one, I think I'm gonna have to change the name, but right now it's called Hallie's Rules for Reinvention and Refinement. And
Lovely.
since you've read the book, you'll know. So it picks up right where it left off, where Hallie's going
Oh yeah.
to Smart People Camp. And her goal is that she doesn't want any romance. She's gonna figure herself out. She's gonna turn into Hallie 2.0, better person, self-actualized, manifesting. She's ready. And then she immediately falls in love with her roommate. So
Of course, immediately.
immediately, like right off the bat. So she spends the whole book like, no, please, I can't do it. So and it's really fun. It's I the my favorite dynamic is Ice Queen. So I get to write an Ice Queen for the first time.
Nice.
So fun. And the I'll give you a hint. The love interest was actually in the first book.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
you have to look out for her. But she was in
I
there.
also I love I love a sequel that picks up right where the last one left off. I think that's very fun.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun. And then of course we have like you get to see Nav and Gia, and they're in there too. So
Yeah. I'm actually writing my first sequel.
ooh,
Um, I like to think that all of my books take place in the same universe. And like there really are little Easter eggs in all of them, sort of like about others.
I feel that way
Um,
too. But it's funny for me because mine are horror. So like
yeah, that is fun. But this is the first like official sequel. So given that we're talking about romance books here, it's not a spoiler to say that Ginny and Elsie end up together.
Of course.
So the sequel is two characters who are very, very briefly mentioned within My Best Friend's Honeymoon, and they are the florist and the baker who work together on
Aw.
Ginny and Elsie's wedding. Um, and yeah, as I said, I am kind of reworking it, so that's about all I have right now. We'll see what else exists, what else comes to
No,
be.
that's
I have a
so
lot more
fun.
brainstorming to do, but yeah, if you had asked me about it last week, I would have been much less excited to about it or to talk about it. But I'm feeling good about it now, and I'm feeling really excited. Um, and yeah, I guess that sort of leads me into my next question, which is, what do you do when, if we've both quit our day jobs, like this is writing is what we do. It's our job. We have to do it.
Mhm.
But what do you do when the words just won't come?
For me, my ADHD is like ruling my life. So
The
if
mood.
something is not working, let's say like I'm not doing well with Hallie, I have like 15 other projects I can go to. So yeah, so I mean, actually this week I've worked on Vampire Book, Hallie, Haunted House, and a Carmilla retelling all this week.
Wow.
So, and I just do little bits and pieces, and then eventually they add up, and you have 4 books, and they're all ready to go.
Are all of your projects at different stages? You said that you really like to plot everything out. Are you plotting one while you're drafting another, while you're editing another, or
Yes. Hmm. Yeah, I get too confused if I'm drafting at the same time.
yeah.
I'll be putting vampires in my contemporary on accident. So, but Hallie is in revisions. Carmilla is in very beginning stages of plotting. Haunted House is almost ready for sub, so I'm line editing. And Vampire Book is I'm doing like I'm experimenting with self pub. I'm not sure yet, so we're just doing like research there.
Yeah, I think that for people who are outside of publishing, I think that sometimes self-pub sort of has a bad rap. I think
Hmm.
people can assume that, oh, you self-published because like you're not good enough to traditionally publish, and that is not the case
No, not
in
true.
any way, shape, or form. And I am interested in self-pub in theory, but speaking of like raging ADHD, I don't know that I have the skills um to self-publish because I feel like I need somebody to tell me, yes, this book is ready. And I need
Yeah,
somebody else to tell me, here's what the cover looks like. Like the idea of having to find a cover artist myself, understand what I might want the cover to look like so I can give them, advice on how to draw it up, and finding my own, copy editor or whatever, things like that. That all sounds so overwhelming to me.
yeah. Honestly, it's not fun. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I really don't like it, to be honest. But I'm just like seeing if I can do it. Like I want to see if I can overcome the
I
adversity here, and I might not
I
be able
love
to.
but I love, everything you said about experimenting, whether it be in different genres or different ideas, or self pub compared to traditional pub. I think that is smart and fun. Um, and yeah, some of them will be successful and some of them won't, but you're not going to
Yeah,
know unless you
but you
try.
don't know unless you try. Yeah, I'm a
Exactly.
scientist at heart. My major in college was animal science, so
Oh,
I have to try it
nice.
all. I've tried pantsing before, didn't like it, but but now I know that I don't like it.
Yeah, I with this book specifically, I have realized that, when I first wrote, as I said, I knew nothing when I wrote something to talk about. Um, and now that I've done this a bit, I understand the beats of that a romance has to hit,
Hmm.
I understand what the sort of the pacing of a story needs to be, and I understand how to plot, which is something I did not know from when I wrote something to talk about. But I think I'm realizing with this book, um, that I think just because I know those things doesn't mean I have to lean into them. Um,
Hmm.
I think that I sort of focused too much on plotting, um, and it took away some of the joy for me. And so
That
yeah,
makes sense.
it was trying something new, and now I'm getting back to sort of my typical way of, which it is still plotting, just less sort of professional, which is I just scream my ideas at my friends. So it does end up being plotting because I'll scream my way into the third act breakup, or I'll scream my way into figuring out a beat that it hits. But I'm not just sitting there and sort of writing everything down and getting it all exact and perfect. Um, I think that it turns out that my process is a little messier than that, and I didn't really realize it at first.
Yeah, I like that. For me, my memory is kind of poor, and so I'm so terrified of forgetting something that would have been good, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
gone. And so that's why I write everything down, and that just ends up being, a plotted outline. And some of them are messier than others, though. I like what you said there because my outlines range in page from like 6 pages to like 18.
Oh,
Um,
very different.
yeah, very different. So sometimes I have a lot more to say and a lot more details, and then other times I'm just like, we can kind of see what happens when we get there.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like in my, flailing to my friends about my ideas, is I sort of I usually find the big moments. Big emotional moments. And
Yeah,
then the rest of my writing is sort of figuring out how we get to that point, or how we get from this emotional moment to that emotional moment.
yeah. I call them tent poles. They hold
Oh,
up the
I like
tent.
that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Yeah. And so, sometimes to take something to talk about specifically, I had some of the ideas that I had before I even wrote a single word. Some of the things that I yelled at my friends about are in that book, exactly as I thought they were going to be. And one of them is, one of my absolute favorite scenes. Um, but at the same time, another of my favorite scenes in the book is one of the last scenes that I wrote in revision, based on s- notes that my editor gave me. And I always try to remember that,
Hmm.
when I'm writing, that yes, I might have a great idea, and it might work perfectly, and I might end up loving that scene, but also a first draft is a first draft, and I'm going to always end up maybe stumbling upon, maybe not planning it, but stumbling upon great ideas for the book as I go through every process, whether it be drafting or editing or whatever.
Yeah. I think that's so important too, because I went through a period where I had a little bit of perfectionism. And
Mhm.
like, if the first draft wasn't perfect, then I would just like shelve the project and not even look at it.
No.
And yeah. And I really had to I mean it gave me a little bit of a complex and some burnout, and that was
For
not fun.
sure.
Yeah, but how I fixed it was just learning about self-editing like a
Mhm.
lot. Um and then I guess it like builds my confidence. Like, okay, if the first draft is not perfect, that's okay because we have the tools to fix it. And
Yeah.
I guess I just wasn't as confident in my tools because I had gone I think it was the same for you where we went straight from pitch wars to agent,
Yeah.
and so I just didn't have time to hone that ability to self edit because by the time my agent saw the pitch wars book, it was, I mean,
It was,
you know,
yeah.
we had already
Yeah.
worked on it.
Turning a book after a Pitch Wars book, is a whole experience.
It sure was. And it was not a great one for me.
Yeah, same.
So
Um,
but I feel better now. Like I feel
yeah,
like I've finally gotten over that hill.
good. For me, something honestly, what I have to remind myself of a lot, but really it has been very helpful. There are things in the published version of something to talk about that I would change, if
Hmm.
I could, like now.
Of course,
And
same with me.
so recognizing that it's not just, because lots of times people say, oh, first drafts don't need to be perfect. That's, I think, sort of a common refrain. And it's absolutely true. First drafts do not need to be perfect. Um, but also final drafts aren't even going to end up perfect.
True.
Is something that's been very helpful for me. I think that I used to, every time that I was working on a project, I was trying to make it perfect. So,
Mm,
in drafting, I was trying to draft perfectly. In editing, each, no matter what round of edits I was on, I was trying to look at it, an overarching the entire book and make everything about it perfect. And realizing that it's never going to be perfect has really helped me and has allowed me to, maybe on this editing pass, I just look at dialogue. And
yeah.
there might be something that, might be some description somewhere that's terrible and absolutely needs fixing, but I don't have to focus on that right now. Like, it has allowed me to, you were talking about how you didn't necessarily have the tools to deal with what you needed to, and I think that knowing that it's never going to be perfect has allowed me to be really specific with the tools that I use, um, rather than desperately trying to fix everything at once.
Yeah. Because it's just not sustainable. Like you'll burn out that way.
Yeah,
And
and
for
it still
me,
won't be perfect.
I know, yeah, like you burn out for nothing. And for me, like a lot of people say they can't reread their old stuff, but I can because I just think this is the best I could do at the time.
At the time. Yeah.
And you grow and you learn, and yeah, of course there are things in bad witch running that I would change, like phrases or paragraphs, or I would say, oh, I would move this element in earlier or foreshadow.
Yeah.
But like I just didn't know how to do that at the time, and that's fine.
Hmm.
Like I did my best, and I think that's what I try to carry into each project now. Like, did I do my best? Am I proud of it right now?
Yeah.
And you know and if that's the case, then I think I did all I could do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what matters. And I think that instead of, reading something in the past and being like, oh my God, or like embarrassed about it, I could do so much better than this now. It's like, that's great that you can do better than this now. That demonstrates that you have learned and grown as an author.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so, yeah, it's never something to sort of, I think, be sad or embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know that we've gotten any audience questions yet, but I just wanted to, as we're coming up sort of, on the hour, I wanted to remind people to get your questions in if you do want them uh, to be asked, and want us to chat about them. Jessica, what in this book was the most challenging part for you? Whether it was a specific scene or chapter, or the editing. You said you had to beef it up as you
Mm-hmm.
edited. What part of this was sort of the most difficult for you?
I was really lucky in that this book kind of just poured out of me. I just it just came to me, and very easy drafting process. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. But not all of them are like that. Sometimes you
Yeah.
have to fight tooth and nail to get 500 words. But this one, I mean, I was obsessed. Like I was writing like 5K a day. Like it
Oh my
was
gosh.
wild. Yeah. It feels a little bit like being possessed. Just a little bit. But the beefing up process was really hard. Deepening the characters.
Hmm.
Also, I am on the ace spectrum, so
Hmm.
I don't really feel much attraction, especially right away. And so my editor had to keep being like, "Tell me, like, what she's feeling right now." And I'm like, "I don't
You're
know.
like, I
Like,
don't know.
somebody tell me. I don't know."
Yeah.
So that was pretty difficult. I think that's the most difficult part of romance in general for me. I just don't
Hmm.
feel the physical part of it. But the romance part, like the actual like soul connection part, I'm good at.
Yeah. That's fun. I get that too, of tell me what they're feeling here. And sometimes I'm like, I thought I did. Like, I thought I explained
Yeah.
it so well. Or I thought, everyone says show don't tell. So I think I do such a great job of like showing exactly how everyone's feeling in the moment. And then my editor will be like, what's happening in this scene? And I'm like, God damn it.
It's like back to the drawing board.
That I thought I had this figured out. Do you have advice, now that we are, 7 years in and many books into our publishing careers? Do you have advice, for other authors, either starting out or even, just trying to make a career out of it instead of just a sprint?
Ooh, okay, I have two. One is perseverance. Like, no matter what, just don't quit.
Mhm,
Or if you do quit, quit for a little while and come back. You know, like it's
mhm.
okay. You don't have to do it all the time. But just like doing a little bit every day, or if you can't do every day, whenever you can, reading about craft and just
Yeah.
reading in general.
Mhm.
If you really want it, like if you want to improve, that's the way to do it. And my second one is do the work. Like
Mhm.
don't do shortcuts. Don't use AI to help you write your outline
Oh,
or whatever. Like
for so many reasons.
yes, the process is that's where you find the joy. Like of course
Mhm.
you're going to be frustrated when you first start out, and I'm frustrated now sometimes if I can't figure something out. But like laying on your couch listless for 3 days until you get that eureka moment is part of the joy. Like
Absolutely.
you're robbing yourself of the experience if you cheat basically.
Yeah.
So no matter what, do the work. Like if you are insecure about world building, go and get a book on world building. Don't just cry about it, you know?
Yeah.
So, those are my
Yeah,
two
that
pieces of advice.
yeah, that goes along with my advice. My advice, especially if anyone wants an actual career as an author, my advice is always write the next book. Because
Mm-hmm.
anywhere that you are in the process, and that goes for brand new people, and it goes for you, Jessica, too. Anywhere that an author is in the process, if you want a career in writing, you're going to need another book.
Yep.
um,
Always.
so if you're brand new and you're just beginning to query agents, you're going to need another book. And that's true whether you get an agent from the book that you're querying or you don't. You're going to need another book at some point. And then once you have an agent, if you are on submission to editors and you're waiting to hear if an editor wants to buy the book, write the next one,
Yep.
because whether an editor buys that book or not, you're going to need another one. And that just continues, even to the point of having a book deal, even to the point of, you know, hitting bestseller lists and things like that. You're still going to need the next book,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to keep doing this. And so, yeah, write the next book is the advice um, that I always share with anyone at any point in the writing process. Okay, it looks like we do have an audience question. Thank you for that. We have a question that says, "How do you keep writing fun and enjoyable when doing it as a job?"
Oh, that's a good question. For me, I like to I move around a lot. So
Hmm.
if I'm frustrated with one, then I'll move to another one. Um, I also do a lot of like scheduled writing. So in the morning, I do my best work. So I wake up
Hmm.
super early and I go for like a walk, and that'll clear my head. And then I'll eat breakfast and I'll write until about lunchtime. And then, and I usually do my best work then. And so
Hmm.
then, after lunch, then I'll do errands with grandma, or we'll, do something together. And I'll just do a little bit of like editing work or marketing or whatever. And that helps me. I like schedules. And so that helps me keep it on task. But then that also means I have scheduled time for fun. So that's always nice.
That's
And
smart.
yeah, I have like alarms on my phone. So at 8 o'clock, I can do whatever. I no more writing for the day. I can watch TV or anime or horror movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And if I want to write, if I feel motivated, I can. But I do have that hard cutoff,
Yeah,
and that helps me.
there's no guilt for choosing
Yes,
to do something else. Yeah,
exactly.
for me, everyone always says that when you get a book deal, your relationship with writing changes. And before I had a book deal, I was like, not for me, no, though. That won't happen for me. I love writing and I always will. And I do love writing and I will always love writing. But in terms of keeping it fun and enjoyable when doing it as a job, sometimes it's not. And the only difference is when you're not, on deadline, or you don't have a book under contract, when it's not enjoyable, you can choose to just not do it. for something to talk about, I got stuck on something in July, and I did not finish that scene until November.
Oh, that's a mood.
Um, and I could because it wasn't a job. Um, so it's not that, writing, if it's not as a job, is always fun and enjoyable. It's just that you have the time and space to take a break if it's not fun and enjoyable. Whereas when it is your job, you have to push through a little bit more than
Hmm.
you used to. Um, but for me, what is like most important is to be writing books that I want to write. Because if I don't want to write it, if I'm writing it, because I think that's what the market wants, or because I think that's what somebody else wants, um, I'm just not going to enjoy it as much. And so the writing itself is not going to be as fun. And also then like rereading the story to edit it isn't going to be as fun. And it's just, and it's also not going to be as good. Like
Hmm.
I think that mistakes were made is a testament to writing your most sort of ridiculous, enjoyable stories, because that's what is gonna come out of you the best. And if people don't like it, at least you did. Um,
Yeah. I mean, you're your
yeah,
first fan, so
yeah,
you have to like it.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be our last question. And it's from the audience, and it says, "What book do you find yourself always recommending?" And Jessica, if you need to think about this, I absolutely have my answer immediately.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I will never shut up about Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. It actually it has another Pitch Wars connection to us. Rosie Dannon and I were Anita's Pitch Wars mentors.
Oh yay!
Um,
I don't think I
yeah,
realized
so
that.
so we worked with Anita on this book when it was in draft form, and it's honest, like quite honestly, it is my favorite book of all time. I've reread it many, many times, and every time before I reread it, I think probably it's not as good as I remember it being. And then I reread it, and I'm like, God damn it, it's better than, than I remember it being. Um, Love and Other Disasters is an adult romance with a the first openly non-binary contestant of like America's favorite cooking show. And they fall in love with another contestant. And it's the first book I read with a non-binary main character. And as a non-binary author, I never considered honestly even writing a non-binary main character until I read Love and Other Disasters. So like not only is it just really freaking quality writing and a great story, but also like My Best Friend's Honeymoon is my first book with a non-binary lead, and it would not exist if Love and Other Disasters didn't exist. So yeah, I
I
will
love
truly
that.
never shut up about Anita Kelly. Thank you.
I read their second one, I think, or I'm not sure. It's the one with basketball.
Yeah, that's their third.
Third
How
one.
You Get the Girl, I think.
Yes, I love that book. I
Yes.
really do. So I got to go back and read the other two.
Yeah. I have never read anything by Anita Kelly that I haven't like basically been obsessed with.
Yeah, I got to catch up.
So
For
what about you? Did you come up with a book that you find yourself always recommending?
Yes, and it's the opposite of Anita's, I think. So Bunny by Mona Awad. Um,
Okay.
it is my all-time favorite book. I love that book so much. It's weird. It's pretentious. It's like so strange, and it uses like the royal we at some point. Like it is the weirdest, wildest book in the world, and I love it. And I can't even really explain the premise to you because it's a spoiler. But
Okay.
basically, it's set at a college, and the main character Samantha, she gets invited to join a cult, basically. Um, so yeah, and hijinks ensue from there.
Of
Um,
course.
a
I
great
haven't
book.
read it. I know it, and I can see the cover in my mind.
Yeah, it's such a
Um,
striking cover. Excellent cover
yeah, so
design.
I will have to get to it.
It's really weird, and if you don't like it, I understand. It's
If
very polarizing.
if you don't like Love and Other Disasters, everyone watching this, I don't understand, and I will bully you. Anyway, Jessica, thank you so much for chatting with me, and thank you to Love Sweet Arrow for hosting us here. Um, I've had a really great time. I hope that you have had a great time with your release week. Um, and yeah, I'm so excited that we get to get more rom-coms from you.
Yes, thank you so much. Hopefully, it's just the first of a long rom-com career. So
Yay.
we'll see.
Well,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Meryl and Jessica, for letting us listen in on your lovely conversation. And thank you, everyone, for coming. It's been a very enjoyable hour. I will see you all